Today I adjust the valves. I install a used crankshaft seal and I have a look under the clutch cover.
This is the inlet valve. I'm just tightening that up until I feel it touching the top of the valve, putting pressure, which is putting pressure on the camshaft. And you can see that position there where it's just touching is that slot is, I'm going to call it 12 o'clock. To give it clearance, I'm going to back that off to about 11 o'clock, which is probably about there. I'm going to use 10mm spanner to nip that up. Now I need to have the screwdriver in place to hold the slot at 11 while I nip that up, and I can't do that while I'm holding the camera. I've tightened that lock nut up. I've also backed the screw back, if you like. I was saying 11 o'clock, it's probably back closer to 10:30. That's because I wanted to feel a little bit of play in it, and I wasn't getting what I would feel enough play in it at 11 o'clock. I don't know whether that's because I've used a bit of molybdenum grease on the cam, which it may be sort of riding on, if you like, because it's a pretty small gap. So what I've done, I've set that at the 10:30 mark. I can feel a little bit of play in it. I couldn't really feel anything at 11. I'm going to check them later. A little bit of play is good, and I think that's the inlet valve done. Now this is the exhaust valve. It wants to tighten up against the valve at around what I'd call 2 o'clock. And so it needs to be backed off about 10 minutes, which is back to 12 o'clock. And the lock nut done up there. So that's the slot at 12 o'clock. Don't know whether you can hear that tapping. This exhaust valve has twice the amount of play that the inlet valve should have, because the exhaust valve expands with the heat, and so it needs more clearance. But if you can hear that little tapping, the actual inlet valve, I couldn't get a noise like that from it because the movement is so small. David O'Neill asked, how do I get the cases so clean and polished up? Well, I don't think they're particularly clean, but a wire brush like this in impact driver, that still spins the brush at a reasonable rate. Got the outside of that case clean. I also have a wire wheel in my pedestal grinder over there in the corner, and I polish all the bolts and things up on the wire wheel in the pedestal grinder, and they come up nice after a little bit of a polish, and so things start to look pretty good. I've got that cover clean. It only needed a wipe out internally. Externally, I hit all the bad spots with that wire wheel, and I think I've probably used a rag and a bit of degreaser in spots, get some of the heavy oil out. And then other spots you just have to pick away with a tip of a screwdriver to break some of the crap away. I certainly haven't done the whole engine case at this stage. If you look down under there, it's still as dirty as it was. I'm going to be tipping this whole thing right over, and I've decided to take the clutch cover off and get it cleaned up, and have a look in the clutch side of the engine. The engine's currently got about 1.5 litres of oil in it, good oil. I'm going to drain it out and see how dirty it is. It's got an oil filter in it at the moment that is the original one that I spent ages trying to flush out. There's always going to be a residual of old oil in an engine, unless its cases are completely dismantled. I don't want to tip the engine over onto this side and have what oil's in there run into this side. Well, for one reason I won't do that, I haven't got a camshaft seal in it. So I'm going to drain the oil, I'm going to tip it back to its normal upright position and drain what oil is in there out, then take the clutch cover off, and hopefully not too much contaminated oil will run back into this cover because I'll have drained most of it out the bottom. This is a crankshaft seal. I went to the trouble of knocking it out of the 88 engine. You can see the spring on the outside of the seal there, and another one on the inside. So this is an original seal. I was curious as to how well that fits the cup, back of the cup here where it runs, and it actually is quite a neat fit on there. I don't think this 88 engine had a big leak from around this cup, and I don't have a seal, even a TC style seal, to put in here. I can put this one in, and if it holds I'll leave it there. If it doesn't, I can hook it out and try a TC seal at a later stage. But sometimes when you've got a part that looks like it'll do the job, why not try it? So I'm going to that just knocks in from this side. I had to take the whole cover off 88 engine again to knock that out from behind. But I'm going to just push this one in from this side, and if it leaks I can hook it out from this side and replace it from this side. I've reorganised my blocks of wood on the left hand side of the motor so that I can tip the motor over onto its left hand side and take the right hand cover, the clutch cover, off and give it a clean up. Check out what I find inside, whether there's any surprises. I've also drained all the oil that I'd put in out. There's about 1.5 litres, possibly more, because it more than filled that little tub. There's about 1 centimetre more than that tub. Surprised me a little bit. It means there's possibly left over from when I first topped it up. The way I drained the oil was I tilted the whole motor right up on an angle like that, had all the oil run to the very rear, and then took the rear sump plug out, gently lowered it back to horizontal, and in the process I think keeping all the oil up towards the rear. And there's a sort of bit of a ski jump between the rear plug and the strainer area, which we'll investigate when we get that right hand side going. But I think I'll have got 99% of the oil out, which means I'm not going to have a problem with oil running out of there or the out of anywhere really, I think, when I tip it over onto left hand side. Well, that's the engine up on its left hand side with the right hand side with pretty clear access now. Whip the cover off, starting with things that take the oil filter out, the temperature sensor out, whip around all of the bolts in that top cover. There's a wire here. Because I drained the oil so thoroughly, I doubt whether dirty oil, a lot of dirty oil anyway, is going to rush down to that bottom cover that's all clean now. You can't ever get all the oil out of an engine unless you separate it and wash all the parts in kerosene or something. That's the wall of the centrifugal clutch there. Normally I see deeper grooves, radial grooves in there, because the clutch comes with sort of radial grooves on each of the pads. It's difficult to see the way it is at the moment. I think I'm seeing material past the edge of the shoe there, 1.5 millimetres or something. I need to pull it out to check it out better than that. The actual cup has got hot. It's not completely burnt up like 94 one was. And I don't know the condition of this clutch pack. I know that I've got a clutch pack in the 88 bike that's in really good nick. I'm thinking I might take some things apart to have a look, to assess. I don't think I'll be swapping anything at this stage. It's fairly easy to knock this cover off when it's in the bike. The cover came off quite easily. I was a little bit surprised. The gasket remained intact. So being such a tight ass as I am, I'm likely to run that again, get that cover all cleaned up. I'll do a quick dismantle of this centrifugal clutch and clutch pack just to have a look internally at the wear on the steels and the friction layers of the clutch. I could also pull the oil pump out just to see that there's no shit in that. But there's not a lot of shit in the bottom casing there. There's the bit of black there is the worst I see. There's black build up in the middle of the screen there, but nothing untoward. I think clutch material's got to go somewhere, and I think we saw evidence of it in the strainer and some of it that hasn't washed down to the strainer. That's given that this oil was mostly fresh and now been washed out. It looks fairly black. You can see it laying across there. You dip your finger in it and your finger comes out relatively clear. I don't think I'll be doing any more today.
There doesn't appear to be any ugly surprises under the clutch cover. Friction materials are consumables. I'll check out the wear and clean things up tomorrow. So as always, get out to your shed and have some fun.